Well, guys, back when I was younger, I made a full-time living growing certain plants in the forest. And I would raise, good-sized gardens out in the forest. And I would put those in different locations because, if people know you're growing things in the forest, they will come when you're not there and they will take what you have. And sometimes, people with uniforms and badges on will also come into your forest gardens and take what you're growing. I can't really say what I was growing, but you can probably figure it out. But I was growing, big fields in the forest, and this has been many years ago actually. And it was a lot of work, to put those in, and you had to dig a lot of. The soil in the woods is very poor. It won't grow, most plants to where you need them to be at. So you have to actually dig out, these large holes in the ground and take the dirt out and carry in good, rich topsoil and compost and then fill those holes up with that. And then you plant your plants, and then you have to actually come in every so often and water those plants. You have to fertilize. You have to trim out the male plants before they pollinate the females. Because if you let them pollinate the females, you have a lot of seeds. You don't want a lot of seeds with this crop I'm talking about. So you want to get all the male plants out. And usually you can tell, which plants are the male plants because those plants will be taller more quickly. They will be more spindly. They will have, a longer section between, the shoots that come out from the sides and the leaves. And they will be taller because they're trying to get up above the female plants. That way when they come out with the pollen and they spread that out, it will go over the female plants and seed those to make seed. So you want to get those plants, those male plants out of the garden before that happens. And usually that happens, toward the fall. So you have to start watching that very closely and get those out when it starts to happen. But, you have to carry topsoil in. You have to fill all those holes up. And one thing I would do is I would actually make the holes about as big as a 55-gallon drum and dig those out about 2 foot deep and then carry in topsoil, compost, and fill those holes up, plant the plants, and then when they got so tall, I would mulch around those, and also I would use the leaves that's already there to mulch around those, and that made it more difficult for, someone from the air, flying a helicopter, for example, to actually spot your garden and come and take what you worked to put in place. And I would always go in different ways. I would never go in the same way twice, because if you go in the same way 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times or more, you'll start to make a path. And a lot of people will, at that time, people with badges and people without, would go around looking, trying to find trails. And they would say, there's a trail. They would follow that trail down to try to find out what was at the end of the trail, because they were wanting to find anything that was growing. And then they would come back in the fall when that was ready to harvest, and they would harvest those plants. So I would go in a different way, or at least try to, every single time. And I would go in and I had a ATV, and I would park about a mile away from each garden. I had different ones because, if you have different ones, then hopefully the people with badges and the people that are just out looking, trying to steal something, won't find everything you have. If they find one, they might not find the other. And you don't want to plant more than one in one forest location. If you have, say you have 3 different gardens, you would plant one like in the southern part of the county, one in the middle part, one in the upper part, and you might even plant one in another county. That way if one was found, they wouldn't find everything because it was different locations. But I would park about a mile away from each one, and I would walk in very easily and very gently, and I would listen, and I would look for trails, and I would try to see if anyone had been there or if anyone was staking the place out. A lot of times people with badges on would actually go in, they would find what you have or someone else would find it and tell them. And they would put in game cameras and things like that to try to get, your picture. So when you would go in, I'd put on, a mask. That way, if there was a game camera, they couldn't see who it actually was, for one. But I would also always listen very closely and see if I could hear anything. See if I could hear anyone talking, if I could see any tracks. If you see like a mud puddle and you see it's summertime, the sun is out, and someone's went through and you see tracks and you see, water up on the other side that's not dried out, that's a fresh track. Someone has been through there within the last couple of hours, so it's very, very recent. You got to keep very alert and watch your surroundings and try to figure out if anyone, was there. And that mile from the ATV to the garden might take several hours to get there because you are moving slowly, you're listening, you're looking at tracks, trying to figure everything out. But one time I was going in and I saw ATV tracks, quite a bit of them. I saw foot tracks, and I knew, what was up. I knew someone had found my secret garden of tomatoes. So I eased in, and I was, I'm like a ninja. I'm really, really quiet in the forest, and it comes from years of living, working, hunting in forested areas. And I could move in leaves, grass, very, very quietly, very, very slowly, like a ninja. If you're going in leaves, you want to put your heel of your foot down and gently ease your foot down. And then do the other one the same way. Heel down, ease your foot down, and move very, very slowly to keep from making any noise or attracting their attention. And I actually eased in within about 25 yards of these people that was there, had the area staked out. And these are people that had on badges. So I was within 25 feet of these people, and there were 4 of those people watching my tomato garden in the forest, and they were watching that, hoping that someone would come in, whoever was doing this, because they didn't know, whoever had this garden, they was hoping they would come in, la-di-da-la, la-di-da-la, and they would start, watering and fertilizing, and they could have this on film and use that in court, and they would come out, you're under arrest, police department, and for raising, tomatoes. So I snuck in within about 25 yards of these people, probably. It was very, very close. I mean, it was from here to, the lawn there in my kitchen. And I could hear these people talking, and I was just listening, and they didn't have a clue I was there because I was all camouflaged, had a full ghillie suit on, and I snuck right up within, like I said, 25 yards, and they never knew it. I would listen to them talk, I watched them, and I probably watched for 15 or 20 minutes, and I just eased away. And I lost that patch of tomatoes that year, but looking back, I was right there on top of them. I mean, if I had malicious intent, I think I would have all been gone very easily if that's what I wanted to do, but it wasn't, wasn't worth it at all. It just tomatoes. So I just backed out very gently, very easily, and when I got out of, earshot and got a safe distance away, I took off and went back to my ATV and got on that, took off, went to my truck, loaded it up, and went back home. and just wrote it off as one of those things because, you know, I had other gardens scattered out at different locations. But I was so close, you know, I could hear what they were saying. I could see who they were. And like I said, I was full ghillie suited. Everything was covered up like I always was. And I was raising tomatoes, you know, is serious business. But I saw those people there, they were hiding, they thought they were. And I come in 25 yards behind and just watched these people. And it was difficult to keep them laughing, actually, because they thought they were doing so great. They were waiting on to get that tomato farmer. But it was kind of scary in a way, because you were thinking when you're that close, are they going to see? Are they going to look around? Are they going to turn around? If they turn around, can they actually see this person here that's actually laying flat down on the ground behind the bushes, looking at them? Can they actually see anything? Would they see any movement? What if I move and they hear something? And I move and I start going backwards, retreating to get out of the location. That was kind of scary, because you never know. You know, someone might turn around, you might make a mistake, you might step on a stick, and they hear that, and they turn around and they see the guy in a ghillie suit getting, you know, disappearing into the forest. They're going to come running, because you can't have those tomato farmers growing tomatoes, you know, in the woods. But anyway, it's a long time ago, and it's a completely different career. That's been, my goodness, that's been many, many years ago. Actually, a couple of decades ago. And it's an interesting story, I thought. So I thought I would share it out here with you. But being able to ease around in the forest, to move quietly, is a skill that I think everyone should master. And learning, and the key to it is paying attention, looking at all the tracks, everything that's around, broken sticks, broken branches. If you're going through, you know, like a field, grass or whatever, and you see like weeds that are pushed over, then you know someone has pushed it over. If you see tracks, like going through a mud puddle and you see water on the other side and it's summertime and the sun is shining, you know that's really, really fresh tracks. You can tell pretty much when those vehicles came through, when those trucks came through, ATVs came through, just by looking at the tracks. It's not that difficult. And knowing how to track, keep your eyes open, pay attention, how to move very quietly in the forest and the woods is extremely important in my opinion, because you never know when you're going to have to fall back on that skill. And squirrel hunting is in the mountains. Squirrels in town, squirrels here around my house, they're pretty much tame. They're not a challenge at all. But if you go into the mountains where squirrels are more wild, they don't see humans. And if they hear anything or they see anything, I mean, they are gone. They can go from tree to tree, and they can go and be gone so quickly that you can't catch up. So you want to get very, very quietly to sneak up on these squirrels in these trees. And it depends on what time of year. If it is in the late fall, they'll be on the ground, the squirrels will. So that's a different prospect altogether. But in the late fall, in the early fall, when you know your acorns is coming off and they're in the trees and they're eating, you know, they got the leaves in the trees and things, and they're getting those green acorns and eating those, and they're eating those pine cones and things in the trees during that part, then they can take off when they see you through those trees very, very quickly. If they're on the ground in late fall and they hear you coming, they can ease away and be gone, and you'll never see them. You might hear them. If they hear you, they'll be gone, and you'll never see them again. So squirrel hunting is definitely good for practicing your stealth in the forest. Anyway, if you liked the video, hit a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully.